2, 1. Welcome to Taiki Books Google Hangout. We are here with Tia Reed, author of The Grotesques. Hi, Tia.
Hello.
So why don't we start by you telling a little bit about yourself and a little bit about The Grotesques.
Well, I currently live in Adelaide, but I have lived in other places around the world. I love travelling, and I've always wanted to be a writer. And I think the travelling has stemmed from that as well. A lot of what I've experienced and seen overseas sometimes makes its way into my stories. So,
Okay, so tell us a bit about The Grotesques without getting too spoilery because you want people to read it.
I do. The Grotesques is an urban fantasy. It's set in Adelaide, where I currently live, and it's about a discredited journalist who's trying to get her reputation back. But as she keeps investigating a case, she finds that it becomes more and more fantasy-like. She is trying to investigate a number of murders and disappearances, but she finds along the way that some gargoyles are perhaps not what they seem, and there's another monster in there that she really didn't expect.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the journalist's backstory because it's got she's got a pretty intriguing backstory.
So the protagonist, Ella, the hero of the story, she used to work at a newspaper, and newspapers in the story, most of them are fictional, but her reputation was discredited. She's an investigative reporter. She was trying to investigate some drug dealing. Unfortunately, her source was kind of working on both sides of the law, and that meant that he fed her some incorrect and misleading information. As a result of that, the drug deal went ahead. She was kind of discredited because of that, and for her refusal to actually name her source in court, simply because of, well, her journalistic integrity, and also because she wasn't involved with that person, but she was involved with other people and the police force. It is backstory, so you don't get the full details of that through the plot, but you do get enough to understand what has been happening there. And that's sort of driven her in that she's feeling very low at the beginning of the story. She's almost afraid of investigating or doing anything to tear the shreds of her reputation that remain. But sort of she at the same time does want her reputation back. She's a good journalist. And so when she's given the opportunity to investigate the series of murders that are taking place in Adelaide, she wants to go down that road. Unfortunately, she doesn't quite want to believe a lot of what she's seeing until sort of fairly late in the book, simply because to go down and say there are monsters and there are gargoyles and so forth haunting Adelaide will actually discredit her completely.
Yeah, it leads to tabloid journalism instead of
the more reputable investigative type.
So you are dealing with magical creatures, obviously, and such, but your main protagonist has no magic involved in her. She's not a warrior. She's just a person. How did you decide to make her just a person?
Okay, to be completely honest, The Grotesques was my third manuscript, and I'd had limited success with my first two. I'd got requests for falls and won competitions and things like that, but couldn't get it published. And then feedback I got from somebody who's quite well regarded in Australia was that the characters are too shallow, and you need to invest more in the characters. So when I wrote The Grotesque, I made a conscious decision that it would be characterization I was going to focus on. And to do that, I felt that by setting it in a more modern setting rather than your traditional fantasy secondary word setting, and by putting having a real person who was not only fighting sort of this inner struggle, but quite skeptical, which I think most of us would be in this sort of setting, as much as we want to believe in the monsters and the magic.
Yes.
I thought that would be the best way to actually strengthen her as a character.
Okay. Now I am looking down, and I apologize. I'm looking for questions on YouTube. There is a delay, just so people know, between what we say and then what you hear. There's about a 15, 30-second delay. So if I don't see your question right away, we are getting to them. Just thought I'd mention that. So The Grotesque is set in Port Adelaide, Australia. How did that setting, which you obviously know, influence the story?
Well, it was a case when I was plotting out and planning this story of needing a place that was close to water to facilitate the plot, and that came from the research that one of the monsters needed the water. And so, you know, I had a little bit of a brainstorming night with some friends who suggested some places. But in the end, I was just driving around the various beach places in Adelaide, and Port Adelaide sort of stood out as having a setting where I could actually use what was there, and the short Port Canal, and it was going to work in with the story very well. So I kind of knew the area, but I was down there a lot while I was writing, trying to get some details right. And I have taken artistic license, but I don't apologise for that.
And you shouldn't. Okay, so Romain is inspired by Saint Romain.
Yes.
Also known as Romanus of Rouen. And yes, I'm looking down at notes. My memory's not great. Who died around 640. Why did you choose that particular inspiration? Did you? What can you tell us of the saint that affects or ties into how you created your character?
Okay, it was kind of the other way around, in that I'm a planner. I know some people like just writing, but I am a planner. And when I first had the idea for the story, I was researching gargoyles and researching sort of churches and things. And he was just so intricately associated with the first gargoyle that it was like, how could I not use him in the story? And then his whole subplot actually developed. So again, I've taken artistic license. There's nothing to suggest he had a twin brother. They're not identical, but nothing to suggest he was a poor fisherman's son. In fact, it was quite the opposite, that he was probably well off, because in those days it was the well-off who became the bishops and associated with the higher positions in the church. But again, it was just, how did I want this story to develop? So he did start in my story as a poor person. From what I've seen from the research, his mother's name, is actually correct. There is a legend about angels appearing at his birth, that he was a bishop and became a bishop and was responsible for the first gargoyle in some form. I'm not going to say too much because there will be a bit of a spoiler if you don't know it. So yeah, it was once I've done the research on gargoyles, it was just, he was just a character that couldn't be left out.
So obviously, as you just said, you did a fair amount of research for this book. How much or how long, how in depth did your research go?
Probably not as in-depth as a lot of people's. Obviously, there was a lot of things I found out that didn't make it into the book, or that got cut for the sake of pace, because it wasn't supposed to end up a history lesson. But yeah, I do like researching for everything. And I researched to the point where I think I can make a plot out of this. And then I do write my first draft, and I've done that with the manuscripts that follow as well. I also research sort of while I'm writing. So I'll get to a point and think, I really need some information here. And it may not be the central information, what's really, really needed in terms of moving the plot forward, but it might just be simply, was this character ever in that place? And try to find that out as I go. Yeah.
Okay. So you touched briefly on your writing style, and you're a planner. So you obviously had an outline, or a pretty major outline by the sounds of it, when you started.
Yeah.
Did you find any time during the book that your character went off of your outline and you had to wrestle them back?
Yes, but I didn't particularly wrestle them back. I kind of just let them go. I did end up having a few plotting problems, which Margaret pointed out. So it's had a couple of rewrites to try and fix that. It's yeah, but particularly with the one that sort of I finished not that long ago, I think reining them into what you want to do, or reining the characters in, it is a mistake. And I've heard sort of other people sort of say that. But I think if we're trying to fit them into what we want to happen, then we're actually losing the characterization. Because if they're a well-developed character and they want to do that, then that's what should happen from their point of view, which is really what I'm trying to write.
So tell us a little bit about your magic system. It's a fairly unique magic system. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Okay. There's really two characters in the book that have magic, and that's Romain, based on Saint Romain, as you said, and his twin brother, Genoud. Their magic system comes through their religion. So they were born on Samhain, and as a result of that, they have access, or had access, to the spirits, because the veil between the world is thinned at that stage. So they did need to develop it. It wasn't sort of automatic, we've got magic powers. But Genoud tends to stay with that magic system, whereas Romain, as he moves towards the church, the Christian religion, tends to find his magic within God and I guess the more light, what we would call light, as opposed to Genoud's dark.
Okay. Do you foresee any other stories with your main character, with Ella?
Well, I've toyed with them, toyed with the idea. I haven't planned anything or got a concrete idea as yet, but I'm not ruling it out. Um, so it would be a nice way to showcase different places in Adelaide, because I don't think we do have a lot of books that are set here, and I do like the place. I think we've got some gorgeous areas here.
So do you have any other books coming out, even if they're not in this world?
I've currently got a manuscript or two with Margaret, so I'm waiting to see whether she likes them or not. They are not set in this world, but I'm hoping that one of those will be coming out.
Okay. So I guess my next question would be, it's not going to be a long interview. I know that where you are in Australia, time is, it's pretty early in the morning where you are.
Yeah.
So if people wanted to follow you or stalk you, how could they do that?
Okay, I've got a Facebook page that should be up and running. And I've got a website, so tiareed.com. tiareed.com. So that's my website. The Facebook page is just new, so I'm sort of getting that up. But I think people should be able to access that as well. I put this interview on there, access to this interview.
Yeah, and it'll be on YouTube when it's done. Also on the Taiki channel, it'll stay there. So I'm just seeing if I can find you on Facebook. It's just Tia Reed.
It's Tia Reed. It's a page.
There are several Tia Reeds. Huh.
Yeah. It should be writer's page.
Tia Reed writer. It's not coming up. I'll put a link in it. Or you can send me the link and then I'll put it on the YouTube feed.
Okay.
So tell me about your writing area. Is it a nice quiet area, or do you like music blaring? And if so, what kind? Is it?
I love total quiet. I have set up a room, like as a writing room, and I've made it into quite a nice room. This is not my room at the moment, but I've got big desk, all my computer equipment and printers, and a great big bookshelf full of my favourite books in there. And I've got a couple of tapestries with medieval scenes on the wall. If you have a look at my Facebook page, that you've actually got a photo of one of those as the header on Facebook. But the reality is that the more I write, the more I don't like being in the same room all the time, particularly if I'm writing for hours like on the weekend. So I'll just move my laptop into whichever room I feel like. I know people will cringe, especially sort of chiropractors and everything, but I wrote my latest, or what I'm working on at the moment was almost entirely written on the couch and half reclining. And it just seemed to work. So, yeah, it's just varies with the weather as well. I like taking my laptop outside if it's nice, and then staying in the lounge with the heater in winter. So, yeah.
Does it get very cold there?
Probably not compared to Canada. 5 degrees Celsius would be our minimum in winter. So probably 12 would be the lowest maximum we get. But it does get very, very hot. So last weekend we had temperatures in the 40 degrees.
Well, it's your summer now, isn't it?
It is. We're in summer.
Yeah, and it's our winter.
How cold does it get there?
Well, it's actually been really nice. It was about -5 today, which, believe it or not, is really nice. And there's almost no snow on the ground right now, so it's actually unusually warm. We have gotten, it's not unheard of, to get -30 or so, but as you cringe. But it's usually only for a week, and then it goes back to, -10, 12, 15.
Okay, yeah, that's cold. I've been in -20 when I was in Moscow, and that was really cold.
It's what you're used to.
Yeah.
I think, because, yeah, I have friends in Arizona who find our summers cold because they have the same type of heat as you. It gets to 40 above, and then I go over there and they think, oh, the weather's wonderful, and I'm just sweating and going, it's way too hot. So I think it's what you're used to. So is there anything else you want to add? We've been at this about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, so not too bad.
No.
Besides buy my book. Do you have a copy of the book with you? I didn't even think to put it on my iPad. There, yeah, so we can see the cover. Perfect. Yeah. With the gargoyle on it.
It's a brilliant cover.
It's a very nice cover. Yeah. Canadian artist. She's eligible, the artist is, for an Aurora, which is the Canadian version of the Hugos. So we've entered her name in under artist. Okay, well, I will let you go. Thank you very much. Between both of our technical problems, it actually turned out quite well. And we will talk to you again.
Thank you.